Hey guys, how's it going? Like Butter here. Welcome back to another Division 2 video. Today we're going to be talking about the major armor rework that is going to be coming to the second game. And I want to talk about how the armor worked in the Division 1 and kind of what they've done to rework the way that armor, helped with your build or helped with your survivability. Because in the first division, the way they did armor is they used mitigation, which was a percentage of ignorance, I would say. Like, it would ignore a percentage of damage that was coming into you. So, for example, I think when the game first came out, it was something around like, I don't know, you could get something around like 60% when the gear sets first got added. And then eventually, I think in 1.3, your mitigation went, I think, up from 65% up to 75%. And if you understand how much mitigation 75% is, on top of all the stacking resistance bonuses from player talents and skills like booster shot, you could understand why some of the survivability just got completely out of hand and why the PvP was so unbalanced. Now, a big problem with this was because in the PvE side of things, the mitigation was incredibly important, and the PvP side of things, it was 100% necessary. Now, the reason it wasn't as necessary in PvE is because the NPCs did so much damage anyways that it really didn't make too big of a difference whether you were at like 55% or 60%. The resistances, even when they were stacking, didn't make a huge difference. Like, the NPCs just melted you regardless. And I think it should have been the other way around. Like, if you have a lot of armor, you should actually feel like a tank. You never really felt like a tank in PvE in the Division 1. So the armor has had a complete rework. This was an idea I think many people had very long time ago. When you look at how the NPCs work in the Division, they have an armor bar above their health. And when you shred through that armor bar, you will then get to their health bar. And then when you shoot their health bar, you will kill them, right? Well, the problem was there was a stat in the Division 1 called enemy armor damage, and this statistic only worked against NPCs. It didn't work in PvP until I think 1.5. That's when they added the enemy damage modifier to PvP. But what happened was, because armor was such a absolute must-have on all of your gear, it was just too much of a hard counter to what everyone was building, right? Just because the way armor worked, they kind of had to nerf it down to now enemy armor damage in PvP pretty much does nothing. And the reason is because it was just a little bit too strong with the way that it was. So how armor is going to work in the second game is you are going to have armor bars above your health, just like the NPCs do. So each individual section of the armor you can see on screen here represents a health bar, essentially, right? And once that health bar is gone, your armor bar is gone, then it will get down to your actual health. Now, how the healing is going to work in the Division 2, as you can see right there on screen, is that there is no more face tanking where people are going to be running around in circles and popping a med kit and then popping a heal and then getting triage and a ton of other abilities that are allowing them to take less damage, like critical save. All those things, as far as we know, are gone. That isn't going to be the game you're going to see in the Division 2, which is fantastic because the PvP in the Division has always been a complete mess. Either something does way too much damage or it doesn't do enough damage. But for about 90%, I'd say for about 90% of the game's life cycle, the time to kill has been way too high. And it's been super difficult to balance that because they were balancing PvP and PvE the same. So something may be incredibly strong in PvE, but not be good in PvP, or something might be incredibly strong in PvP, but not useful in PvE. So I'm really hoping, it seemed like they're leaning towards balancing PvP and PvE separately. It seems like that's really where they want to go with this, and I think that's the absolute best way to do it. And this change to armor is going to make, I think, PvE more balanced, where you're still, getting rewarded for the armor that you build. So for example, if you want to be a tank and you want more armor, well, that's fine, but you're going to have to give up something else in return. And I think what's going to happen with this situation is you're not going to be seeing people running around in the dark zone face tanking anymore. You're going to have to be very careful and very strategical with how much damage you're taking. So instead of it being like, where a skill or something just instantly heals you to full health, how the med kits were reworked in the Division 2 is that they are currently called armor kits. Now, armor kits are more like a med kit or a first aid that you would use in a game like PUBG or something like that, where you need to be behind cover to use the armor kit, because if you get shot too much, it's going to knock you out of that animation. So it's going to be much like when you go up to cut a rope, how if somebody's shooting you, it kind of it lowers the action speed. So you're not going to see people running out in the open trying to use these armor kits, because it's just not going to work. They're going to get killed. And if you actually see the animation, your character actually takes the chest plate off and then replaces it with a new chest plate. That's super cool, because that long animation is going to keep players playing more strategical and playing smarter than just, running around and face tanking all the time. And I'm all for this game being more cover based. Obviously, you don't want it to be 100% cover based where you have to be in cover all the time, because that's a bit boring. But I think cover should be a large portion of the combat. And as most of you know who played PvP and even PvE in Division 1, strategy wasn't ever necessary. You may be in the dark zone, you could just face tank right through like 50 things, because you have your med kit and you have your first aid ready that you can just pop it whenever you get low. So you could basically just shorten that gap between the enemies that you're rushing against. But like back when nobody had min-max builds, it wasn't like that. You couldn't run up. Like, try running in someone's face in 1.1. They were going to just melt you in a half a second. And that's why I really think that this is a very positive change, because if people want to have a lot of armor, that's fine. But it's not going to be something that they can heal instantaneously. So the armor kits can get dropped off of enemies. You see throughout the demo, armor kits getting dropped off enemies. I'm sure you're going to be able to get them inside of loot caches and all that other stuff around the map. Like in the Division 1, they had bags that would spawn. I'm sure they'll spawn around the map like that. So you're going to need to be very careful with those armor kits. You're going to have to be very conservative with it, and make sure that you don't use them at stupid times, and make sure that you have enough on you in order to survive. And I think this is a fantastic change. We haven't heard anything about if there's going to be any skills that will heal your armor or give you armor over time or anything like that, but they have confirmed that it will not be the same as the Division 1. The game is going to play very differently, and I'm super excited to see more about this armor rework. I think what this is going to do is it's going to allow the developers to keep control of if armor is too strong, or if it's too weak. They're going to be able to really pinpoint what the problem is, whereas something with mitigation, it can just scale out of control. And that's pretty much what happened with the Division 1. Mitigation is the worst way that you can implement armor into a game, because mitigation gets stronger the more you build it, which made it an absolute guaranteed must-have when you were building your gear. So eventually they ended up taking armor rolls off, but still, just mitigation just doesn't feel right, because when you take into consideration the lag and the movement, how people are just running around in circles, only a percentage of those shots are actually registering, and on top of that, only a small portion of the damage is actually leaking through. Another huge thing that having a visual armor bar is going to do is it's going to allow people in PvP to pick out like who the tank is and who the DPS players are. One big problem with the Dark Zone in the Division 1 is you never really knew what you were shooting. You never knew what sets people were using, or if they spec'd more into DPS or more into armor or more into health. You never really had an idea what you were shooting when going into the Dark Zone. It was kind of a huge variable of, well, I'm going to shoot this guy. I have no idea if he's undergeared or he's overgeared or if he's a tank or if he's a DPS. So this is going to make for a lot more strategical PvP because you're going to be able to focus out the squishy players, maybe the healer or the DPS player. What people were doing in the first division is everyone was running around with the same clothing on, so you could never really tell who the healer was. It'll be good to see that that will no longer be a thing now that, you know, you'll be able to tell from the armor bars who's who. I think this is going to be a huge positive change for the Division 2. I can't wait to check it out myself. I think just the idea of having to either be in cover or, you know, out of combat in order to heal your armor is going to be pretty cool. So the only way to get your armor back is either using an armor kit. Like I said, we haven't heard anything about skills or talents or anything like that yet in the demo, but that may be a thing in the future that they might add, with gear sets being 100% confirmed for the second game. But when you leave combat, which means you kill all the NPCs, or I'm assuming like maybe in the Dark Zone you stop getting shot for a certain portion of time, or you're considered out of combat, you will gain your armor back, you know, almost immediately. So it's like kind of like a regeneration thing. So yeah, I'm just super excited. I think this is going to be like fantastic. I can't wait to jump in and try out some PvP. Hopefully we get an announcement for a beta. Thinking maybe September or October is where we may see an alpha or a beta or something like that. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the armor rework. Do you have any thoughts and concerns? Let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.